Okay, so I will start this session with few of the AWS question first, and then we will go with other generic questions and few questions what we have received on the WhatsApp as well. That I will cover. Few of the questions I have received from Shivkant, from I think Prajwal, and few more. I don't remember. I think Sagar also asked some question related to the Terraform and a few other questions as well. So I'll be covering those things as well. So the question number 31, although we are going to share the complete PDF with you, you can go through all the questions which are left out and which are present in the PDF itself. I think that was also the question from the Sagar that whether we are going to share other questions as well or not other than the session. So yes, we are going to share the complete PDF with you. Question number 31 is related to your Elastic IP address. So if you remember, while we were covering questions in the beginning, while talking about the AWS cloud, we talked about that whenever we have to assign any permanent IP address to our server, we go with the EIP concept. Correct. What can be a scenario where here based on which this question we have covered? Just suppose that you have one application server 1, and when we are talking about the server, we are talking about EC2 instance. That's understood, correct? So your production EC2 instance app server 1 is attached to an Elastic IP, EIP1. Suddenly the server faces a critical issue. That means your EC2 1, which is running, that has some critical issue. It can be your disk failure or OS level corruption or any kind of like the EC2 itself goes down in that particular EC2, correct? So you need to quickly switch over to a backup server. That means you have to move the things from server 1 to server 2 to restore the services. Right. So how can you do this? Like that means you can think in a way that you have this DNS called as abc.com, and from this abc.com you are going to switch like route your traffic to some IP address that can be your like 127.10.32.14, that kind of IP address. So your DNS is always getting resolved to this IP address only. But what you have to do now, this IP address will not be attached to the EC2A. It should route the traffic to the EC2B. So how can you route, how can you configure this kind of setup? So in general, if you go through the complete question, you will see the question itself is pointed to the Elastic IP address. That means you have to keep the IP address permanent, and then you have to redirect the you have to just assign or reassign this particular IP address either to server A or to the server B. So that's the concept what we have covered here, correct? Then moving further, we have other questions as well. This is kind of theoretical, what you most of you might be already aware, or you can go through this question. What are the different types of the EC2 available? One of the major question, and you might have already encountered as well during your interviews. Have you experienced any challenging issue in your project? How did you or your team resolve it? We have written down few other questions as well, which are there on the bottom of the PDF. That is marked as generic interview questions. But here I will just give you a I will give you a story which you can narrate during your interview explanation. Although I have not written those lines, but I will just narrate so that you can understand, and you can explain the same thing. So most of you might have worked with the AWS RDS instance, and when I'm talking about the AWS RDS, I'm talking about the databases. So whenever we have a real customer, what we do, we create one database in the primary region, and when I'm talking about the primary and secondary, I'm talking about the backup. Like whenever you create any real infrastructure, or whenever you're going to store the data of a customer, you create a replica, or you create a backup of the data, so that whenever something happens in primary region, you can restore the data from secondary region. That means one database will run in AP South 1, that is your Mumbai region, and secondary database is going to run in EU West 2 or London region, that you can say. So when we are going through all these things, we are recording. Yes. So when you are going with all these things, what can happen here, or what the issue we faced sometimes 2 to 3 years back. So we had this shift, correct? Within this shift, we had one engineer who was monitoring all the incidents or the alerts, you can say. And one incident was reported around midnight that our database storage has been completely full. That means whatever the database storage we had provided, you can think in a way that it was 40 GB for one of the microservice. So all this 40 GB was completely consumed. And since your application, whatever the production application is there, it always makes connection with your database. Then only it will be able either to read or write data to the database. Correct. Here, like your application is running on the part A, and then your database is on the part B. So it has to establish the connection. Then only it will either read or write the data. So since your complete database storage was consumed, not a single connection was being made through application now because there was no storage left. And if you are going to run any process, like even if your application is going to make a connection, this is a kind of process, correct? So since your database storage was completely consumed, it was not allowing to make any kind of connection. And in this kind of scenario, what happens, even you won't be able to run any kind of SQL query as well. That means you cannot kill process, you cannot delete any temporary files from your database. So it was a complete blockage from the database side. And since your database is not working, ultimately your application will not work because all the user related credential, all the other details are stored in the database only. So just you can think in a way that if the user details are not being fetched from the application and I'm trying to hit into the application, your application will verify whether my data, whether my user exists in the database or not. And if application is not able to connect to the database, obviously it's a downtime for the application. It's not able to authorize me. It's not able to authenticate me, correct? So in that scenario, what we observed that we had to provide this workaround. And to provide workaround, what we did, we suggested our team member to increase the storage. So she increased the storage from 40 GB to 60 GB. This is how you increase. You get into this AWS console and you get into the settings and you modify the storage. If you have worked with the AWS console, correct? She increased the storage, and after that, what happened? Everything was normal and fine. But just after an hour, we received another alert that once again the extra 20 GB, what we just increased an hour before, correct? That has also been completely consumed. So this incident was like a kind of challenge for us. 40 GB storage was consumed within 4 to 5 months, and this 20 GB extra storage got consumed within an hour, which was not the normal one, correct? So we had to investigate, and when we investigated, when we talked with the AWS support team as well, and when we like investigated, we went through few articles like what can be the possible scenario, correct? So we observed that whatever the primary configurational changes you make, like you have this primary database and then you have the secondary database into another region. So what was happening here, like whenever you are maintaining this primary and secondary, what you do, you make the replication as well, like from primary, whatever the data is being written to the primary database, that should get synced with the secondary database. That means the like 100 data are there in the primary, these 100 data should be in the secondary as well, correct? So that whenever you have to store, you can restore the complete database. So what was happening, when this database storage was consumed on the primary, the complete 40 GB, it started the replication on the secondary because the database storage was full at the both the side. So to provide the workaround, what we did, we increased the storage size on the primary, but we didn't change anything on the secondary. So secondary was still full and primary got increased from 40 to 60. So it has the space to read or write the data, correct? But secondary was still full. So what was happening? Whatever the data is being replicated to the secondary, that was now getting accumulated on the primary itself. The extra data which your application was writing, that was there, and the data which was supposed to replicate to the secondary, that was also getting replicated to the primary only. It was like creating a, you can say it's kind of, what we say? So it's a kind of like gathering multiple files on the same platform, correct? So this extra files, the replication file and the extra data which was being written to the primary database, all this got accumulated at the primary database and it consumed the extra 20 GB within an hour. So to mitigate this issue or to fix this issue, what we did, we changed the configuration from 40 to 60 on the secondary as well. And after that, replication started once again. So what was the challenge? What was the problem here and what kind of learning we achieved? The problem was that we were maintaining primary and secondary database for our customer. We got the incident that primary database storage was fully consumed. Correct? This was a normal scenario. This was a normal problem. when we did the configurational changes, there next one more problem we created for ourselves. When we increased from 40 to 60, we didn't make any change on the secondary side because we were not aware. We were not aware that whatever the changes you are making on the primary, that should get replicated on the secondary as well. The same configuration you have to make the changes. Correct. So we created another problem from our end only. So the moment we did these changes, replication file getting accumulated on the primary itself. So to mitigate this, we went into the investigation. We went through the articles, and we found that you have to increase the storage on the secondary as well. The moment we started, we changed the configuration on the secondary, replication once again started. After this, the problem was solved, and both primary and secondary was working fine. So this was a kind of real problem what we faced while after before 2 to 3 years back. And this story you can narrate. I hope this story you can understand, and you can explain it in your words as well. Simply in one liner, it's a kind of a storage issue on your production database where you increased at first and you didn't increase on the second. So you had to make the same configuration at the both side in one liner. So this story you can narrate in your own way.